Alright, welcome to this basic Photoshop tutorial where I'll be going through the steps I go through when editing portraiture photography, and I'm going to go from this to not that, this in some few basic steps. So to begin with, I always try to identify what needs to be done. Basically, I use a red brush and paint in the places I need to fix at some point in the image. The first step in every retouching is fixing up the image. So clean up whatever doesn't need to be there. And in this case, when we do portraiture, it's simple mistakes in the camera, like you can see here. These are noise specks on the camera lens. There's some things with the background. It's uneven, as you can see up here, right there. And we have some small pimples and blemishes that we need to fix on the portrait. A thing you should note when retouching portraiture is that this is the story of the person we're telling. So always leave birthmarks and spots that are a permanent part of the person, scars as well. In some cases, people would like scars removed, but as a thumb rule, always leave these things behind, because they are a part of whoever you are retouching. So let's jump right into it. I've circled the some of the things that we need to fix, and I'm gonna mute this layer so I can always return to it and see if I've fixed all the things I need to do. So the first thing I do is I create a new layer with Control Shift N or Command Shift N. Or just simply press this button right here. That adds a new layer. And on this layer, I use my my spot healing tool for the smaller areas. I'm gonna do an example here. Call this clone copy. Spot healing tool to just drag over these small blemishes that are easy to fix and are not in areas where there is a transition from dark to bright, like this. This could be an issue. It wasn't this time, but it sometimes has problems doing it. For instance, if I want to fix this, I wouldn't be able to do it with the spot healing brush, so I would be forced to use a clone stamp tool. When using clone stamp tool, it's a tool you need to play around with in order to get familiar with it. But the most important thing to do is when you use it, of course, hold down the Alt or Option key to sample from an area. Press down on the mouse button, and then you can see the arrow indicates where it samples from. So this way we can move all the pesky beard. So when I need to do it up here, I need to resample from the ear, like that. I'm not gonna go into much more details about how to do this. I'm pretty sure there are numerous tutorials that teach exactly this. So basically, this is what I've done. I've cleaned up most of the image, but some things are not yet cleaned up, like this section over here with the blood vein. To do this, I always used a soft clone technique, where I'm gonna show you right now. Create a new layer, soft clone copy. I'm gonna mute the layer up here so we can redo it again. I take the clone stamp tool, lower the flow, increase the brush size. Flow between 10 and 20 usually works for me. Again, it's a matter of taste. And sample an area where there's same color tones and saturation, and just slowly paint the transitions between what you want to fix. And I do this with a soft brush with low opacity or low flow to make the transitions easier. And I also do it under the eyes sometimes to reduce how that looks. Same goes with the lines in the neck that are sometimes everyone has them, but they rarely look very good on photos. When doing these, never remove them completely. The same goes with the lines in the forehead or under the eyes, because that would end up look unnatural. Yeah, and the next thing I do is let me remove these so we don't get confused by them. I'm gonna do some color correcting, and to do that I usually look at the image and see what needs to be fixed, and in most cases there's some reddish that needs to be reduced. And how I do this is, let's mute these two layers. I create a new layer, call it color correction, copy, and I change the blending mode to color, and then I take a brush, increase the flow to 100, reduce the size a bit, and then I sample from a place where I think would be good. Let's just try here. And then again, this is the trial and error thing where you try to sample and then paint over. Okay, now I'm focusing on the nose because I wanna the chin here. I'm gonna create a new layer, which is why I have two layers. And now I've reduced the red from the nose, but it looks unnatural, so I'm gonna lower the opacity to 0 and then slowly increase it to see when it starts to look natural. Let's try with around 40%. So we have from this to this, and the same goes with the chin. That's what I've done here. All right, and let's see here. The next part is painting with light or increasing contrast selectively, and I've done this by creating a new blank layer, changing the blending mode to overlay, and I've created a layer for each section that I've dodged and burned, basically. Then that's what this is. This is a dodge and burn technique that is a bit faster to work with than using the brush, tools dodge and burn. I just use a brush, a white and black brush with a flow of 4 to 5%. So let's see how I do this. I'm gonna show you how I did it on the eyes and then move forward. So this is after and this is before. Now what I do is I'm gonna create a new layer here, paint with light, PWL, eyes, copy, and I'm going to use the black brush to enhance the lines around the eye. Just do it on the post. This is gonna take a few trials. I'm using my mouse right now, like that. And let's just focus on one eye here, and also do it on the eyelashes to make them a bit more dramatic. If you do this too much, it could end up looking a bit strange on a man, whereas women has a tendency to want to have long eyelashes. Alright. Yeah. And a general rule when using this effect on eyes is that you can use a big brush and darken the top of the eye, and with the white brush I use the X key to change between them. Big one do like this, and smaller white you can just, and I'm lightening the oh, I should change this to overlay. Oh yeah, because when I do this, it lightens the lightened part and it darkens dark parts. This is basically how it works. And I would do the same with lips. Brighten the parts that are closest to us physically, and darken what's farthest away from us, which is, oh sorry, basically the lines here. And this adds a bit of three-dimensionality to it. When working with men, and if they have a beard or anything that comes close to it, I usually darken that as well. It makes it pop a bit more, and it adds a bit of masculinity, like this. So you can see here how it enhances the image. Alright, and I've done this on the eyes, the lips, the beard. I've done it on the hair as well, you can see here. And I've done it on the skin. And I usually do this on the places that are closest to the light source and us, which is the nose back, the forehead, the lips, and the chin, sometimes the, we call it the place under the eyes here. And when I work with you can see I worked with the black brush when I enhanced the lip line here as well here. But if I wanted to darken the skin, for instance, I wanted to make these shadowy parts darker. If I did, let's create a new layer here called Skin Darken, change the blending mode to overlay, and if I did this with a dark brush, you can see that it darkens, but it also adds a bit of reddish in it, and we're not interested in that. So what I do is and this is what I've done here, I create a curves layer, I'll lower it here, and you can see this also adds some red to the image. But if I change the blending mode to luminosity, you can see the difference here. It doesn't add as much red, but I only want this effect on the outside of his head here. So I fill this layer with black, and then I take a white brush and paint the effect back. Like this, so you can see here. And these are the basics of how I edit most of my pictures. As the final thing, I add some sharpness. As you can see here, I've added it locally on the eyes, on the eyebrows, and on the lips. And I'm gonna show you how I did that. I'm gonna mute this layer. Alright. When selecting the top, I've grouped all these. When selecting the top layer, and press Control Alt Shift E or Command Alt Shift E on a Mac, I think, you create a new layer that is merged on top of all the layers. So all the effects you've just created are placed on top as a flattened layer. And I do this because when you add sharpness, you need the actual pixels of the image to sharpen. So I go into filter, sharpen, and I go to smart sharpen. And in regards to the amounts, a place between 100 and 200 usually works for me. And try to lower the radius and try to increase it a bit and see when it starts to affect the eyes in a positive way, when it pops a bit more. And always be careful with this filter, because if you add too much, you can see how it first and foremost ruins the image. It adds these light fringes that we're not interested in. So I usually stick to a place between 1 and 2 pixels. It also depends on the size of your image. If you have smaller image sizes than I do, you probably need a smaller amount of pixels. And these are images from a 5D Mark III. So I've added sharpness on the whole image, but I only want sharpness on selective areas. When working with portraits of men, it's usually okay to sharpen the skin, but when working with women, and this is a thumb rule that could be broken if needed, but usually you don't want to sharpen skin because it takes away the smoothness and the softness of a look. So I have sharpness, let's rename it, on the whole layer, and what I do is I create a layer mask, which is this icon down here. I take the paintbrush, I make sure that my foreground color is black, and I fill it, and this hides my effect. This hides the whole layer. If it's black, it's hidden. So I have I take my white brush and I increase the flow and opacity, and now I can paint the effect back. So I paint back the effect where it has sharpened the image. I only want that on certain areas that need to be in focus. So that's lips, eyes, and eyebrows. Let's stick to that. Sometimes when you do it in the hair, it gets too detailed. I could also do it on the beard actually. This gives a bit more structure. So this is the basics. After that, you can apply a look to finish it, but the look is something that's more personal and something that could be everything really. All right, the last. Oh yeah, I forgot one thing. This that's why we have this layer, so we can see what we need to fix and what we need. This shadowy thing we have up here, I fix this by duplicate your background layer, as I've done here, make a selection of a good part of the image, and go to Edit, Content Aware Scale, and just drag it up there. Enter, and boom. That's how easy it is done. It's worth noting that Content Aware Scale is a feature that was added in CS5, I think, and the newer versions of Photoshop, of course. And that's it's a very neat feature that allows you to stretch certain areas. And so the final thing is that when adding a look, let's see here what I've done to add my look, and this is all up to you what you want to do. I've added some contrast with this layer. As you can see here, I've added 2 points on the curve and make it a small S curve, and I've added some hue saturation to desaturate the image afterwards. I've desaturated it to -30. When adding a saturation layer, Always go completely desaturated and then add saturation, because our brain has a tendency to not adjusting to how it works when you do it the other way around. If I did it like this, just lowered it slowly, it's hard to see when it works. Is my experience at least. And finally, I've added some color tone. I've added a solid color, which is I think you can find here in the adjustment layers. Solid color. Choose your color. I chose a blue-green. I changed the blending mode to overlay. I think you can play around with it a bit and lower the opacity to where it suits you, around 20%, I think. Yeah. Okay. And finally, I add some vignette to the image, and basically what this does is it allows us to focus more on the subject. Let's remove this one. It allows us to focus more on the subject, and the way I did this was adding a curves layer, reducing the overall darkness, and fill it with black. No, let's just keep it with white actually, and then use a black paintbrush. Lower the flow a bit here. Black paintbrush to paint away the effect where we don't want it. Don't want it on him. Lower the flow a bit more, so it gives a nice and smooth transition. Okay, like this. And that's one way of adding a vignette, which usually works good for me. Alright, that was it. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please comment. And if you want to see more of these tutorials, also feel free to comment and subscribe and like away and share and all that good stuff. So long.